that, because in C91, constitutional lawyers say you've got a problem here as the way it's written on who's got the authority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member will have 4 minutes and 9 seconds coming to him when we return from question period. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was pleased to host the first very successful Sinhalese Heritage Day on the Parliament Hill on April 27, with about 500 Sinhalese Canadians. I would like to thank Edward Anura Ferdinand and his team at the Sri Lanka Canada Association of Ottawa for their dedication in organizing this. I would also like to recognize the SLCAO Seniors Group, Hilda Jayavardhana Ramaya Temple of Ottawa, Sri Lanka United National Association of Toronto, Canada Sri Lanka Sinhalese Association of Toronto, Canada Sri Lanka Association of Toronto, Sri Lanka Canada Association of the Atlantic Region, Sri Lanka Canada Association of Manitoba, Friends of Sri Lanka in Manitoba, Friends of Sri Lanka in Montreal, Toronto Sri Lankan Student Alumni Alliance. The event showed how, while integrating into Canadian society, we do keep in touch with our heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Yellowhead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great sadness that I rise today to say farewell to Robert Wagner Dowling, who passed away at age 95, leaving behind his wife, Olga, and his 2 children, Laurie and Robert. Bob grew up on a farm in Ohatton, Alberta. He was an avid baseball player, an award-winning singer, an explorer, a Royal Canadian Air Force pilot during World War II, a pharmacist, and a politician, and most of all, a husband and father. His love for the mountains brought him to Jasper, where he served the community as a pharmacist and was active volunteer in so many organizations. He was a member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, a cabinet minister, president of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, a board member of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, a lifelong Legion supporter. Just a great human being who gave his all to the community of Jasper, the province of Alberta, and this great country. Bob will be profoundly missed by his family and many friends and associates from coast to coast to coast. Rest well, my friend. Hear, hear.
Member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, homelessness in our veteran community is unacceptable in Canada. One homeless veteran is one too many. As a member of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, the well-being of the brave women and men who put their lives on the line for our nation is a top priority for me and our government. This is why I introduced a motion last year at the committee to study homelessness in our veteran community. After working collaboratively with colleagues from all sides on this study, I'm proud to share that this week our committee tabled our report, Moving Towards Ending Homelessness Among Veterans. In our report, we submitted 10 concrete recommendations to address homelessness in our veteran community. Currently, there are 3,000 to 5,000 veterans who are homeless or at risk of homelessness in Canada. This is a problem that can be solved, and the time to act is now. I want to thank all the witnesses who appeared before our committee and shared their personal and powerful stories. They were prepared to lay down their lives for our country, and we are prepared to fulfill our sacred obligation to them. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Happy World Press Freedom Day, a day we recommit ourselves to a truly free and independent media. And while some of us in politics can relate to the sentiment from Napoleon that said, 4 hostile newspapers are more to be feared than 1,000 bayonets, we all must remain dedicated to that free expression. But around the world, Mr. Speaker, the trend is troubling. The recent report from Reporters Without Borders shows that only a quarter of the world enjoys a truly free press. Far too many journalists continue to face persecution and even death when trying to expose the truth in repressive regimes. Here in Canada, critical stories like the opioid crisis, the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and the SNC-Lavalin debacle were all exposed by a professional and determined press corps. As Albert Catus once said, a free press can, of course, be good or bad, but most certainly, without freedom, the press will be anything but bad. Our colleagues in the media, we thank you for your diligence, dedication, and passion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For 2 weeks now, Canadians living along the shores of the Rivière-des-Mille-Îles have had to deal with record floods. The level of the water is already a historic record. I'd like to salute the exemplary work of the mayors in my part of the country, as well as town councillors who have been working full out to support their fellow citizens. I also want to thank municipal employees, first responders, firefighters, the police force, and the Canadian Armed Forces. Also, the many volunteers who have spared no effort to help the flood victims. And I want to emphasize the assistance, the spontaneous help that we got from a city bordering my riding. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to those who gave their time and energy. Nevertheless, it's important to continue because the work has only just begun. Thank you.
Brampton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, this is a shout out to Canadian farmers, ranchers, and the whole agriculture industry. In April, I had the opportunity to attend the Canadian Produce Marketing Association trade show in Montreal. Mr. Speaker, I've been around agriculture for a long time, but it continues to amaze me. Canadian agriculture is high-tech, it's environmentally beneficial, and it's a front runner in the world for safe, nutritious quality. Also, Mr. Speaker, from April the 30th to May the 5th, 4-H Canada youth are in Ottawa for their annual Citizenship Congress, and as a 4-H alumni, we all want to welcome them. The knowledge and experience that they gain will last a lifetime. Mr. Speaker, as students also prepare for college and university, remember that the agriculture industry is an exciting and rewarding career for a broad reach from robotics to biochemistry to business management. So for each graduate also, there are 4 jobs available. So thank you to all Canadian agriculture producers for what you do for our families.
Honourable member for Central Nova.
Second day back home on the Northumberland Strait. After being delayed by weather through this week, the boats are finally going to hit the water to haul in our precious and world-class Nova Scotia lobster. Last week, the fishing boats along the beautiful eastern shore hauled out and set their traps, and today fishermen on the blue waters of the Northumberland Strait are going to do the same. The seafood caught off our shores, Mr. Speaker, gets exported to markets in Europe, Asia, the United States, and beyond. Last year alone, Nova Scotia's exports in the industry were valued at more than $2 billion. Simply put, our seafood is the best in the world, and people know about it. To support the sector, we've made investments like the $325 million Atlantic Fisheries Fund. We've repaired or replaced 9 local wharves in my riding. We're adding new cold storage facilities at the Halifax Airport and Ballantyne's Cove. We're legislating protection of the owner-operator model for the inshore fishery, and we're assuring that the sector has the tools and support they need to succeed for generations and to help keep rural communities alive. To everybody back home setting traps today or hauling in a catch, I wish you a safe and bountiful season. I encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to come visit me at home and enjoy a taste of world-famous Nova Scotia lobster.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Today in the House to talk about an incredible young girl from my riding of Sudbury. Daniela Grattoli, a grade 5 student at RLBD Public School, took part in the eye-level orvitacular speech contest and was one of 4 gold medals in North America. This year's subject was about one thing that she could change in the world. Originally, her speech was going to be about gender parity, but while she was at the grocery store, she got inspired by another subject. She decided to talk about eliminating hunger. She says, and I quote, "It is sad to think of even one child going to bed hungry. To know millions will is heartbreaking. We need to do better. Everybody deserves to eat." I couldn't agree with her more. So Daniela's public speaking journey is far from done, as she's been invited to take part in the eye-level Model UN camp in South Korea this August. Daniela, not only do you make Sudbury proud, you make Canada proud, and I agree with you that we need to do better to eliminate hunger. Merci, Mr. President.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
The Prime Minister participated in the National Prayer Breakfast and chose to read from Matthew 25. It speaks of caring for the hungry, thirsty, naked, strangers, those ill and in prison. And whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of Christ, you did for him. This scripture is the essence of the Christian community in Canada. Matthew 5:37 says, "Just say a simple yes, I will, or no, I won't. Be honest, simply speak the truth." The Prime Minister said the 2019 Canada Summer Jobs application would be different. Accidental overreach would be fixed. When I signed off on the 2019 funds awarded in my riding, Christian summer camps were included. I and they were deceived. They were subsequently asked for additional information and they lost their funding. The Prime Minister has misled Canadians, giving the impression of inclusiveness within diversity when he's clearly punishing and excluding millions of Canadians who meet the needs of the very people he read about in Matthew 25. Sadly, the Prime Minister is not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to acknowledge and applaud the resilience and solidarity of people affected by floods throughout the Outaouais. At this very moment, while thousands of sandbags are being filled, hundreds of people are losing their homes. There are more than 7 states of emergency, 10,000 people evacuated, and 7,000 homes have been flooded. This is a devastating tragedy. And where would we be without our local heroes? Our firefighters, our volunteers, our police force, first responders, neighbours, and especially the Canadian Armed Forces.
Homes and feeding those hungry volunteers, these local heroes have been relentless as they help those in need. And I've witnessed so many stressful situations, heard so many stories of urgent evacuations, and the community support has been nothing short of spectacular. As water levels have risen, so have the Pontiac's community efforts grown. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Laval. Mr. Speaker, the Mayor of Mont-Tremblant, Luc Brisebois, just announced that beginning June 21st, bus service will be free for everyone. This measure is for everyone: workers, employers, students, families, the elderly, and even tourists. This measure will help reduce greenhouse gases. It shows that we can and must combine economic development and protection of the environment. Everything we do alone or as a community has a major impact on the fight against climate change. Public transit is one of the best ways to support the environment. And Mont-Tremblant is in the forefront with respect to public transit. We're sending a strong message about the future. To the people in Mont-Tremblant and all bus users, I say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, the Prime Minister entered office with a whole lot of promises. He led Quebecers to believe that he was going to save them from Stephen Harper and that Quebec would prosper. But 4 years later, Quebecers see that, like his father, the Prime Minister does not like Quebec. Here are the facts. Instead of helping Davie Shipyard workers, they've effectively cancelled the contract for the Astérix. He legalized marijuana, but it's Quebec and the other provinces who are going to have to pay for it. They're still waiting to be reimbursed. Quebec signed an agreement with the federal government to preserve Quebec's demographic weight and ensure its distinct character. But now this agreement seems worthless. All Quebec's simple asks are simply dismissed out of hand. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers deserve better.
Oakville North, Burlington.
Represent a community where so many of my constituents, in addition to their advocacy on environmental issues, make environmentally conscious choices in their day-to-day lives, such as reducing their usage of plastic or driving zero-emission vehicles. We know that more Canadians are choosing to drive zero-emission vehicles as an increasing number of models become available and prices decline. Regrettably, last year the Conservatives in Ontario cancelled the electric and hydrogen vehicle incentive program, and a number of my constituents reached out to me to share their disappointment and frustration. Fortunately, our government is taking action and has proposed strategic investments to help more Canadians choose zero-emission vehicles, including $300 million over 3 years to introduce a new federal purchase incentive that came into effect May 1st of up to $5,000 for electric battery or hydrogen fuel cell vehicles with a retail price less than $45,000. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh. The Honourable Member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Speaker, I rise today to speak about challenges facing many of my constituents who are older adults.
They're living on pensions that have not kept up with the rising cost of living and are inadequate in meeting their needs. Some are struggling to stay in their family homes, while others face major challenges finding affordable housing. Phone and internet costs are among the highest in the world. Seniors struggle to afford these services on a fixed income, yet they are necessary for safety reasons, maintaining family and social connections, or accessing government services. I recently heard from a constituent that the medical benefits she received at work were unfairly discontinued when she turned 65. The high cost of prescription drugs in Canada is another major burden for seniors. The NDP has a plan to build more affordable housing, lower telecommunication fees, implement universal comprehensive public pharmacare. And in addition, we are calling for a national senior strategy so all Canadians can retire and age with dignity. Our older adults deserve no less.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, many Canadians voted for the Prime Minister and his promised sunny ways. He advertised himself to Canadians as a new kind of politician. He promised to be ethical and transparent, but the Prime Minister and these Liberals have faced 5 ethics investigations, and this Liberal Prime Minister was found guilty of breaking the law. He even used his majority to shut down 2 investigations into his scandals. He promised to help ordinary Canadians get ahead and to lower taxes, but he's handing out millions of dollars to his billionaire friends and forcing everyday Canadians to pay for it through higher prices on necessities with his carbon tax grab. He promised to balance the budget by 2019, or was it going to balance itself? Either way, Canadians are still stuck with a massive deficit, and the deficits caused by the Prime Minister's reckless spending are condemning future generations of Canadians to higher taxes to pay for his broken promises. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's promises of sunny ways are long gone. Turns out the Prime Minister is not as advertised.
The honourable member for Fredericton.
Communities across New Brunswick are feeling the impact of springtime floods. This year, flooding along the St. John River has once again reached historic levels. Last week in Fredericton alone, the water level caused the closure of much of the downtown. Les bureaux, les écoles et les rues.
Offices, schools, and streets have been closed. Almost 500 people have had to leave their homes. We thank first responders, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and above all, the volunteers who worked flat out to make others safe and secure.
To shoulder with the communities affected. We will cover the cost of deploying Canadian troops because we know their work at home is as valuable and vital as it is abroad. We're working together to solve the immediate problems caused by this flood, but we're also looking at the long term. These record floods and their frequency are not a coincidence. They are the result of climate change. We're working to mitigate their damage and make sure future generations do not need to bear their terrible burden.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, canola and now pork producers are being punished by the Chinese government because of Liberal incompetence. But rather than acknowledging that China is blocking our ag products for political reasons, the minister is blaming the pork industry, saying that after exporting pork to China for decades, our farmers have suddenly become incompetent and are filling out paperwork incorrectly. A claim based on nothing more than propaganda from the Chinese government. When will the Liberals stop repeating Beijing's spin and start fighting for the Canadian pork industry?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Canadian producers provide good global quality pork. The system is subject to inspections. The Canadian Embassy has been informed in 2019 that China was temporarily suspending imports from 2 facilities in Canada, pork facilities, because of labeling. This is limited to 2 facilities. The situation remains unchanged for all other facilities for pork exports to China. The CFIA is currently investigating and working with the Chinese authorities to lift the suspension.
It's incredibly naive, Mr. Speaker. It's time we start pushing back against these bullies and what they're doing to our producers. Conservatives have suggested a number of ways to do that, including launching a complaint at the WTO. But the Liberal Ag Minister says that they won't launch a challenge because they don't feel it's just the right moment. Our producers are suffering. Millions of dollars and the livelihood of thousands are at stake. So if now is not the right time to launch a challenge at the WTO, when is the right time?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The member knows that we have 3 pillars of strategy. One is to engage the Chinese at the scientific level. The other is to provide a support program for producers. And there is an alignment across the country, including provincial governments, the industry, the Canola Association itself, and to also expand our export markets. We intend to do that through trade missions to Japan, to Korea, to Europe, and to South America. We understand that this is a very difficult moment for our producers. We stand with them.
Good job.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, they're failing miserably, Mr. Speaker. And now we've just learned from the Globe and Mail that the Liberals are funding a research position where applicants who are critical of Huawei are being screened out. They're told they need not apply. Now, where have we heard this before? If you disagree with dear Liberal leader, you best keep quiet. Mr. Speaker, top security experts and governments around the world are putting up warnings and cutting ties with Huawei. But the Liberals are not only ignoring these concerns, they're partnering up with Beijing and playing right into China's hands. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I think as the honourable member will know, we have been conducting an extensive examination of the whole range of issues around 5G technology. We want to ensure that Canadians get the full benefits of that technology. At the same time, we want to make sure that it is absolutely safe and secure, and we will ensure that safety and security in our telecommunication system is never compromised.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, after having lost control at the border and having allowed ISIS traitors to freely roam our streets, we've now learned that the National Sciences and Engineering Research Council is filtering candidates for an advisor position and blocking those who have strong political opinions on Huawei. This behaviour by the minister is of great concern because he doesn't give a hoot about Canadian security. Why are they trying to block people who are concerned about China from having a say?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Universities across Canada work with various partners on joint research projects across all disciplines. The freedom to pursue ideas across borders and across disciplines is what allows real scientific insight and innovation to take place. Our national security agencies work diligently and efficiently to monitor for security threats and have measures in place to protect Canada's systems. We will follow the advice of our public security officials and would only work with partners that had their approval. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Arlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I think the people opposite the Parliamentary Secretary simply doesn't understand the purpose of the question. The question was that the Research Council, Natural Sciences and Engineering Council, is filtering people, and when those people have concerns, strong concerns about Huawei, they're not allowed to apply. So why is the government preventing people with opinions against Huawei and China the opportunity to speak?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, science and research are inherently open in nature. Researchers and universities work with industry partners across all sectors of the economy to develop new knowledge and applications that benefit Canadians. When universities partner with an organization, NSERC organizes a peer review process that avoids individuals who have conflicts or relationships with the applicants or partner organization, ensuring proposals are reviewed solely on the basis of their scientific merit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
The Prime Minister said that he would be different, that he would change things in Ottawa. Gone are the days of partisan appointments, and we're going to clean up the Senate. Well, Mr. Speaker, not only are the Liberals using a partisan database to see if judges made donations to the Liberal Party, they're doing the same thing with senators. So much for transparency. The Liberals have shown on several occasions that their priority isn't people, but the Liberal brand. Are they not at least a little bit ashamed of putting all of their nominations through a partisan filter?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we're very proud of the process for appointing candidates to the Senate and judges to the bench. As regards judges, look at our record. We have used all tools to verify the merit of these candidates. Secondly, we have come through with a situation where we have the greatest diversity on the bench, from visible minorities, Indigenous peoples, women, and from the LGBTQ community. That is what Canadians expect from us as a government, and that... The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals had promised Canadians that there would be transparency and openness in the appointment process. Appointments will be made based on merit and skills. But no, what are the Liberals doing? They're using a partisan tool to determine whether the potential candidates have given to the Liberal Party or whether they voted during the past leadership race. Levels of support with the Liberal Party should never influence the appointment of a judge or a senator. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister to do politics differently. What about that promise? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I appreciate another question opposite, but here are the facts. The facts are that we consulted, we did due diligence to verify these candidates. We appointed candidates from all political parties to judicial positions. 75%.
Judges in this country have no affiliation to or donation history with the Liberal Party of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Desnete, Mississippi Churchill River.
Speaker, the Prime Minister and his office are spending their time on the Prime Minister's most important relationship. But sadly, it's not with Indigenous people. He continues to prioritize helping Liberals get ahead while Indigenous people struggle with this government's broken promises. Communities in my riding are struggling with access to safe and affordable housing, to good-paying local jobs, and to quality medical care near home. When will the Prime Minister be true to his word and act to help First Nations communities?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. Since being elected in 2015, we have invested $21 billion of new money in infrastructure, in education, in employment. We've removed 83 long-term water drinking advisories. We announced $1.2 billion for Jordan's Principle in Winnipeg last week. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the work that we've done on Indigenous issues with the leadership of our Prime Minister.
The member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Liberal talking points. Just don't cut it, Mr. Speaker. Because the Liberals promise transparency, and instead what Liberals have given to Canadians is probably the most cynical government in Canadian history. This Liberal government is shamelessly, outrageously partisan and runs judges' appointments and Senate appointments through a partisan Liberal lens. That's what they care about. What other appointments have the Prime Minister in this government run through the partisan Liberal donor database to make sure the person was good for the Liberal Party? Aren't they just a little bit ashamed?
The Honourable Minister.
Government ran on a platform to make the Senate more independent, more transparent, and to ensure that Liberal senators would be more able to work independently. Unlike the previous government, Mr. Speaker, who appointed partisan people who were completely ingrained in their party, we have made a difference in the Senate, and the quality of these senators in the other place demonstrate just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good. I just want to remind the honourable members of the rules. You ask a question respectfully and you listen to the answer respectfully, not shouting while the person is trying to answer or trying to ask the question for that matter. The honourable member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the government is restricting snow crab harvesters in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, claiming they're protecting the North Atlantic right whale, but they're actually causing more harm. Heavy ice delays, coupled with the government's decision to reduce the number of traps available, may cause fishermen to fish right through the migration season of the whale. Will the Minister of Fisheries commit to raising the trap limit so that fishermen in New Brunswick and PEI can get their traps out of the water before the whales arrive?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries, Ocean and Coast Guard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have worked very closely with fish harvesters in Atlantic Canada as we develop the measures for the fishing season, but also with respect to protecting the North Atlantic right whales. We have worked very hard to ensure that we've incorporated the feedback from fish harvesters and have met very extensively with them. Those measures, I think, were fairly well received by fish harvesters. We're working very actively through the Canadian Coast Guard to ensure we are opening up all of the harbours as quickly as we possibly can so that harvesters can get out to fish crab.
The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, they better work quickly before the Chinese ban seafood exports. China's been throwing our citizens in prison, committing others to death, and the response of this Prime Minister? Nothing, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, they even rejected calls from many voices, including ours, for a WTO trade challenge. We have no ambassador, and the crisis gets worse every week. Canadians are paying the price for this Prime Minister's weak leadership. When will they stop the excuses, appoint an ambassador to China, and turn around this crisis?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is in close contact with the most important families of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. These cases are about arbitrary decisions by the Chinese government. We're working very hard in a concerted, organized way to address these deeply concerning arbitrary detentions. The member opposite should understand that by leveraging our international allies, we can make China realize the consequences of its actions. That is why we are constantly engaging with our allies and will continue to work with them and thank Australia, the EU, France, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, Lithuania,
Member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's plan to phase out the Canadian resource sector has been a disaster in my riding of Bow River. Now his mismanagement of our international relationships is making matters even worse. Increasing the loan limit for canola farmers is a slow, late start. It doesn't stop past harvest seed from turning rancid in the bins. Why doesn't this government care enough about canola farmers to appoint an ambassador to China, launch a WTO complaint, and stop funding construction of pipelines? Where? In China!
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our government is concerned for the future for canola producers and all producers. For months now, the government has been working for 2 months on resolving this issue. Canada produces the best canola in the world, and we have full confidence in our food and high leading-edge inspection system.
For Battleford Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. China continues to block canola imports due to baseless claims. For 2 months, our canola producers have been waiting for this Prime Minister to show some leadership and to stand up for their interests. Instead, the Prime Minister has let China walk all over him. Our canola producers are being penalized for the Prime Minister's failed leadership. And now, pork farmers are the latest victims of his diplomatic disaster. When will the Prime Minister stand up to China and defend Canadian producers?
The Honourable Minister of Trade Diversification.
Speaker, in this federation, when an industry, when a sector or a region are suffering pain, the country reacts, as the country reacted this week. And it was also the best of Canadian federalism because not only was it the Government of Canada, but it was the Premier of Saskatchewan, it was ministers of trade across the West, it was the Canola Council itself, it was producers working as one. The only ones who were offside are the Conservatives in this House.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, Canada could boast of a trade record with the United States, South Korea, and the European Union. But after 4 years of the Prime Minister's weak leadership, we can't name a single country where Canada's relations are better off. Now we learn that Canada's world-class pork is being targeted by China. Canola was just the beginning. When will the Prime Minister stand up for Canada by challenging China at the WTO and appoint an ambassador to resolve this crisis.
The Honourable Minister.
Since this government came to power, we have signed trade agreements with the European Union, NAFTA 2, the CPTPP, meaning 1.5 billion customers around the world are in our free trade zone. We are the only G7 country that has a free trade agreement with the other 6.
I'm having a hard time hearing the answer. Just keep it down for a bit. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, maybe I should speak in softer tones so they'll listen. We are the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with the other 6. We are in an enviable position worldwide. Already the results are in that because of these negotiations, our exports are increasing.
For Edmonton, Manning.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's relation with China at a historic low, and it's clear that the Prime Minister is in over his head. Earlier this week, the Liberals took the leaders' advice, our leaders' advice, and finally announced support for Canadian canola farmers that have been paying the price for the Prime Minister's weak leadership. So far, his failed leadership has only made things worse. When will the Prime Minister start taking this issue seriously and appoint a new ambassador to China?
The Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the total amounts will go from $400,000 to $1 million. The interest-free portion will go from $100,000 to $500,000. Our partners, the Premier of Saskatchewan, industry stakeholders, have worked together. We will continue to work with them as quickly as we can for canola producers. We are resolved to resolve this issue, Mr. Speaker.
For Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, today students in my riding will be protesting with youth across the country, calling for urgent action to avert a climate catastrophe. The Liberals' climate change plan exempts the biggest polluters and fails to meet even Stephen Harper's weak targets. We need a bold plan that reduces emissions while creating sustainable jobs for workers. We can do this by committing to renewable energy, retrofitting homes, expanding public transit, and investing in clean manufacturing. So when will this government stop praising its failed climate plan and commit to a version of a Green New Deal to ensure a livable future for all?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
To welcome the NDP to the conversation that began under our government several years ago. I want to say thank you to all the young people who were protesting today across Canadian communities, trying to raise awareness about this existential threat to our existence in Canada and across the world. The fact is, we've introduced measures after negotiating with provinces and territories, Indigenous communities, industry, environmental stakeholders, is going to have a meaningful impact on reducing our emissions. Our plan includes putting a price on pollution that's going to make life more affordable and bring emissions down. We're making the largest investment in public transit. Our plan has over 50 measures. This is a game-changing plan. It's going to make a difference for our economy and for our country.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, urgent climate action on the climate change is before us. We are still waiting for leadership from this government. In the UK, the Parliament has just triggered a state of emergency on the climate change. What's happening here? The government's buying an old pipeline and siding with large companies like Loblaws. Mr. Speaker, people have taken to the streets to call for the government to take responsibility. What is the Liberal government waiting for? To listen to them and to take some action for the environment.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we have a Made in Canada plan, and I would invite the Honourable Member opposite to take a look at the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change or the Clean Canada Report. I have a copy in my desk. I'd be pleased to table in this House after question period, should you allow. Mr. Speaker, our plan includes putting a price on pollution, phasing out coal by 2030. By that year, 90% of electricity in Canada will be generated from clean resources. We're investing in green infrastructure, green technology. The fact is we're moving towards a low-carbon economy because we know it's the right thing for our kids and our grandkids who deserve to benefit from the same natural environment that too many of us took for granted when we were kids.
Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve to have confidence in the integrity of their government, and right now they do not. My colleague from Thornhill has written to the RCMP to ask them to investigate whether the Prime Minister broke the law when he accepted the gift of a vacation to a tropical island from someone who was lobbying his government. Canadians deserve answers, and they deserve them now. Will the Prime Minister cooperate with any such investigation, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
When it comes to offices of Parliament and the independence of the police force, we on this side will always have the utmost respect for them, and we always will cooperate with them. And as I said yesterday, it's only the Conservatives that would have to ask that question, because for 10 years under Stephen Harper, they spent their time undermining offices of Parliament, and unfortunately under their new leader, they continue to do the same. But when it comes to this matter, Mr. Speaker, there was an investigation, a report was issued, the Prime Minister accepted responsibilities and accepted the findings. Mr. Speaker, we have confidence in our institutions, and I'd encourage the Conservatives to have a little bit of confidence in them as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, 152 years of existence, never in our history has a sitting Prime Minister been found guilty of violating a code of ethics. On 5 occasions, the current Prime Minister was found to have violated ethics rules under the Aga Khan. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question is this one. It's very clear. Since the Aga Khan Foundation lobbies the government, we are asking the RCMP to investigate. Will the government ensure that the Prime Minister fully cooperates in the investigation?
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as I said in English, on this side of the House, we respect our officers of Parliament and the independence of the police force. We will always work with them. We have confidence in them doing their work independent of government. But as we saw yesterday with the member for Carleton, the Conservatives questioned and challenged the independence of our institutions. We respect their work. We know full well that the committee has done work, provided a report. We accepted the findings. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Minister's efforts in French. But remember that in 2013, the current Prime Minister talked about his admiration for the Chinese dictatorship. And look at the relations we have with China now. Since the Prime Minister has been in position, we've lost the ambassador. 2 companies can't sell their product to China. 2 Canadians have been arrested. There's the embargo on canola. And what's the government doing? It's maintaining its $256 million investment in the...
C'est fini. L'honorable secrétaire...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
It's clear that the Conservatives want to continue to turn their back on the world, but under our Prime Minister and our government, we are working with our allies to help build infrastructure in some of the most underdeveloped countries. Mr. Speaker, we take no lessons from the Conservatives. We will work with our allies. We understand that a strong global economy is good for Canada and good for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, what's good for Canadians is investing in Canadian infrastructure. Right. In Perth Wellington, there are millions of dollars worth of critical infrastructure projects left unfunded due to delays by these Liberals. Yet while the Liberal government is giving $250 million to fund infrastructure in China through the China-led Asia Infrastructure Bank, critical local infrastructure is left to crumble. Why are these Liberals paying to build roads, bridges, and pipelines in China while allowing key local infrastructure here in Canada to crumble?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, how rich from the Conservatives, the Conservatives who never took infrastructure seriously, the Conservatives who never took infrastructure seriously, whose grand accomplishment was a fake lake and a gazebo. Under our government, we've approved 4 times as many projects, and they should be talking to Premier Ford, who right now is blocking infrastructure. Right. Let's get it done. That's right.
I could shout order, but I'm not sure it does any good. I just want to wait for everybody to calm down. And I want to remind the honourable members that when somebody asks a question, we listen respectfully. And when they answer the question, we ask a question, we want to hear the answer. So we listen respectfully. Now we'll try it out again here. The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Coastal communities in BC have suffered through Liberal and Conservative mismanagement of Pacific wild salmon. With cuts to DFO and habitat protection being gutted, our salmon are in danger. Leaders like Bob Chamberlain, who have fought hard for wild salmon, want to hear a bold recovery plan. The Liberal government spent billions of dollars on a leaky pipeline that will increase tanker traffic in our sensitive marine environment, putting salmon and whales at risk. When will this government get its priorities right?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, we certainly agree that the gutting of the Fisheries Act by the previous Conservative government was a terrible thing, and we are restoring lost protections through the new Fisheries Act, which is presently before the other chamber. We have invested $142 million alongside Premier Horgan of British Columbia for habitat restoration, which is the largest single investment in salmon habitat restoration in the history of this country. We have worked to ensure that we are managing the fisheries in an effective way. We are convening a broad conversation of stakeholders on issues around predation from seals and sea lions. We have a bold and comprehensive plan to ensure that we are doing what is necessary to recover and restore salmon populations.
Bull member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 6 million people don't have access to high-speed internet, and the Liberals are telling them to wait until 2030. Everyone should have access to a strong internet connection, no matter where they are, in downtown Toronto or in Essex County on a farm. Internet and cell phone bills are ridiculous in Canada. We pay more than most countries in the world. In Essex, people need access to reliable, affordable internet and cell service for work, for education, and for safety. Why are Liberals denying rural Canadians, like the people in Essex, affordable, reliable internet? My question is simple. Why are Liberals ignoring the needs of rural communities?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Rural Economic Development.
Mr. President, I disagree with the Honourable Member. Broadband is essential for helping rural Canadians grow their businesses and access services and new skills. Our government has made significant investment in broadband infrastructure. We connected 90% of households by 2021. Also in Budget 2019, we're making ambitious new commitments to go further with high-speed internet, connecting 95% of households by 2026. Where you live in Canada should not limit the participation in the digital economy. We have a real plan, and we're going to make it happen.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, today, May 3rd, is World Press Freedom Day. As we celebrate the independence of the media, we shouldn't forget that the free press is a pillar of our democracy. Let us pay tribute to the journalists who continue to do their excellent work, and let's remember those who have lost their lives while carrying out their duties. Can the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism remind us of the initiatives that this government has taken to support the press and defend journalists and their independence? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Heritage. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague, the member for Madawaska-Restigouche, for his question. I'd like to acknowledge the courage of journalists who take risks in order to keep us informed.
Threatened, jailed, harassed, and murdered around the world. In Canada, freedom of the press is a fundamental Canadian value protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We took action to support journalism. We will continue to defend press freedom both at home and abroad because it is a pillar of our democracy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
The Liberals have committed $250 million to build pipelines in China. The Liberals are wasting Canadian tax dollars in the Asian Infrastructure Bank, which doesn't benefit Canadian companies or create Canadian jobs. In fact, I was touring the union lodges of boilermakers and pipe fitters last week, and 70% of their members are out of work. 70%. Why are the Liberals wasting our tax dollars in China and not building pipelines in Canada and getting our skilled tradespeople back to work?
The Honourable Parliamentary Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, as a member very well knows, we have approved Line 3 replacement project, the pipeline, as well as we support Keystone XL. As we know, Mr. Speaker, we also make sure that we are moving forward in the right way on TMX, something that the Conservatives don't understand. The rule of law is something that they do not respect. Meaningful engagement with the Indigenous peoples is something that they never even think about. For us, making sure that we move forward in the right way, in a responsible way, is what Canadians expect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has sent $250 million in Canadian taxpayer dollars to the Asian Infrastructure Bank. This means that the Batui bypass is getting built in Asia with Canadian dollars. But there's no money for projects like the Bradford bypass or the Lake Simcoe Cleanup Fund in York Simcoe. Why is this Prime Minister funding infrastructure projects in other countries instead of supporting projects here in Canada that actually matter to Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I find it very surprising that the Conservatives continue to be fixated on an investment which is helping Canadian businesses abroad. And when it comes to infrastructure investments here, we've approved close to 4,800 projects domestically. That's leading to more transit, more housing, more water systems for the victims of the floods. You know why? Because we believe climate change is real, and it would be helpful if the Conservatives would start making that acknowledgement as well. We're going to keep building in this province, Mr. Speaker, and in this country for all Canadians. Thank you.
Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the finance minister bought Trans Mountain, he said that they were doing so to ensure that construction would begin, quote, immediately. This week, the minister refused to commit to when they would even make a decision on whether or not to build Trans Mountain. Meanwhile, the government is funding the Asian Infrastructure Bank, which is going to build a pipeline, finance a pipeline from Kazakhstan to China. Will the minister commit to a start date for the Trans Mountain Pipeline in Canada and cancel the investment in pipelines in China?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, we are focused on getting the process right and doing this in the right way. We have informed communities engaged in the Phase 3 consultations that we have now until June 18th to bring consultation to a respectful conclusion and to make a decision on TMX. The Conservatives voted to defund and kill the TMX process. We know that we owe it to Canadians to get this process right. Merci, Mr. President.
For Halliburton Court, Lakes Brock.
Mr. Speaker, China has banned canola seed shipments. They've suspended pork products and put up roadblocks for pea and soybean exports, and they're arbitrarily detaining Canadians. What else is China doing? They're building pipelines with over $250 million in Canadian taxpayer money. Pipelines, ironically, this Liberal government can't seem to get built here in Canada. So when will the Prime Minister shelve his admiration for China's basic dictatorship and pull money from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, here we have the Conservatives who are focusing on foreign investments which are helping Canadian interests and Canadian companies abroad and are providing important infrastructure initiatives there. But domestically, we've approved 4,800 projects here. That's creating more transit, more housing, more water systems, which are helping the victims of the floods, which you'd think we'd be united on. And instead of focusing on the province of Ontario, which is blocking infrastructure, they should be speaking with Premier Ford to unlock those historic dollars. And you know what? That'll be a game changer. We haven't seen it yet. Why?
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-Silwa. After missing the greenhouse gas emissions targets,
Order. 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 Thank you. J'essaie d'écouter la...
I'm trying to listen to the Honourable Member's question, but I wasn't able to hear anything. So I'd like her to start over from the beginning so that I can actually hear her question. The Honourable Member. After missing the greenhouse gas emissions targets, the Liberals are also going to miss their conservation targets. Without biodiversity, our planet will die. And young people are protesting this every Friday. The Liberals are nowhere near meeting targets to conserve 70% of terrestrial zones and 10% of marine zones by 2020. In my riding, organizations like Ambiaterra are already doing valuable conservation work. But the $100 million announced by the Liberals won't help raise awareness or monitor the conservation status of natural zones. When will these organizations get the funding that they need to do real work on the ground and to monitor conservation progress?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment, or Fisheries and Oceans.
Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for the question. Last week I was in Montreal with the Minister of the Environment to host a nature summit which focused very much on biodiversity issues and the decline of biodiversity globally and in Canada. We have committed to 17% terrestrial and 10% marine. We have made substantial progress. In fact, at the Nature Summit, I announced the protection of the Laurentian Channel, which brings us now to 8.3% of the 10% target, which is far higher than the less than 1% that existed under the previous Conservative government. We are determined to meet those targets. It is extremely important for the future of the world, and we will.
Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
The world is facing a plastic waste crisis that's filling up our oceans and clogging our landfills. There's over 1 ton of plastic waste for every single person on the planet. In our lifetime, there will be more plastic than fish by volume in our oceans, and Canada's recycling program isn't doing the job. Over 90% of what we put in our blue boxes is actually ending up in landfills. But we have a solution, Mr. Speaker. A citizens-inspired bill, the Zero Waste Packaging Act, will require all plastic packaging to actually be recyclable or compostable. If Liberals are truly serious about dealing with the plastic waste crisis, will they support our bill?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his commitment to the environment. The fact is plastics are simply choking our oceans right now, and I will undertake to consider the bill he's put forward and revert back to him with the government's position. But in the meantime, we are taking meaningful actions to fight plastic pollution today. We are banning microbeads. We are reducing plastic waste from government operations and eliminating unnecessary single-use plastics within the federal government. We've invested $100 million towards a marine litter mitigation strategy. Through the G7 presidency, which we held last year, we introduced the G7 Oceans Plastics Charter. We've adopted a zero plastic waste strategy with all of our provincial and territorial partners. The time to act on plastics is now, and I'm willing to work with the member to make sure we have meaningful progress.
Member for Calgary Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to get confirmation of the Prime Minister's hypocrisy. Potential so-called independent senators are being run through the Liberals' partisan database to determine whether they have had any prior affiliation to the Liberal Party. The Prime Minister wants to know if they have been members of the Liberal Party, attended Liberal events, or even had a Liberal lawn sign before he decides on which candidates to appoint. When will the Prime Minister just admit that his independent Senate isn't so independent?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last election, Canadians were fed up with the partisanship in the other place. In fact, they were so done with all of the shenanigans that were taking place under Stephen Harper's leadership that they were proud that we were going to introduce a new merit-based independent process to appoint senators. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we now have a majority of senators in the other place that are independent senators that have an incredible history and talent that they have provided to Canadians. They are diverse from all locations across this country, and they are doing an excellent job being sure that that place is...
Député de Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, it's very funny to hear the Liberals on the other side. In January 2014, the Prime Minister kicked senators out of the Liberal caucus. Now, he's trying to make us believe that the newly appointed senators are independent. But the Liberals' nature is stronger than their respect for process or their independence. So it's not surprising that the latest senators to be appointed were appointed because they were big Liberal Party donors. When will the Prime Minister stop lying to us and start respecting the process and telling the truth? Before we hear the answer, I may have misunderstood, but I believe I heard a word where someone was called, well, let's just say the word wasn't parliamentary. I hope that the Honourable Member will withdraw that and apologize. Yes, I apologize. However, we still want him to tell the truth. Well, that's not really an apology.
For Democratic Institutions.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, for years under Stephen Harper's leadership, Canadians said, we've had enough. They said the they had had enough of having the Senate be a partisan place that carried out the Prime Minister's order. We changed that process, and we have seen through public surveys that Canadians now have a higher level of trust in the Senate due to these changes. Mr. Speaker, the senators that we appointed in the other place are doing excellent work. They are independent, and partisanship has been lowered.
For Barrie Innisfil.
Oh yes, the Prime Minister's independent Senate. Well, last night, senators who are not on the Liberal donor list were trying to move a motion for an independent Senate hearing into the SNC Lavalin scandal. But who blocked them, Mr. Speaker? Independent senators that the Prime Minister's office now admits were considered from a partisan Liberal database. The fake, false, and exaggerated pretense of an independent Senate, like everything else the Prime Minister does, is getting tiresome. Why won't the Prime Minister just admit that his independent senators take their marching orders from him?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in the history of our country, there's people who are able from across the country to put their names forward to be considered to be senators, because it's an open, transparent, merit-based appointment process. And the Conservatives will always yell over because they don't want to hear the validity of the process, and they know that the Senate is working. The upper chamber has actually offered amendments to this chamber, and we have accepted more amendments on more occasions than the Conservatives ever would have considered. And it's unfortunate because the Conservatives have never had regard for the upper chamber. That's why their Conservative senators remain in their caucus so that they can instruct and tell them what to do. Mr. Speaker, that is not the case on this side. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, it's an eye-opening statistic. People living on reserve in Canada are 18 times more likely to be evacuated as the result of a natural disaster compared to those living off reserve. In recent years, thousands of First Nations people in my home province of British Columbia and across the country have had to evacuate due to wildfires, floods, windstorms, and landslides. We've learned from them many of the failures of the emergency management response system, which ignores their knowledge, traditions, and experiences. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to Indigenous Services please inform this House of the work underway to ensure First Nations are made full partners in emergency management?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the honourable member from Fleetwood, Port Kells for his question and for his hard work. The minister was pleased to join First Nations leadership and provincial partners last weekend to sign a tripartite MOU on emergency management in BC. This agreement recognizes First Nations as full partners in emergency management. It ensures ongoing approaches to improve capacity and involve First Nations as full partners. This would not have been possible without the leadership of First Nations Leadership Council. Together, we can and we will build a better, safer, and more inclusive partnership on emergency management with First Nations.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the out-of-touch Liberals are at it again. First, there was their $12 million gift to the billionaire owners of Loblaws. Now they're giving $500 million to subsidize electric vehicles made in Trump's America. Wow. Now, whether it's Alberta's oil sands or General Motors in Oshawa, this government seems perfectly happy to drive our businesses and jobs out of Canada. Why are the Liberals subsidizing wealthy car buyers and U.S. car builders while everyday Canadians get a carbon tax?
Good question.
Well, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, as somebody who believes that climate change is real and that we have an opportunity and an obligation to do something about it, I can't tell you how frustrating it is when I've been standing up here for the last year answering questions and never once receiving a question from a Conservative member of Parliament asking us to do more to protect our environment. The fact is we're making investments in energy efficiency so we can bring emissions down. We're making investments to help make electric vehicles more affordable because we know that's where the future of the industry is. It's also going to help us reduce emissions. If we can do this without costing our economy, and I know in particular over the past 3 years, our economy has added over 900,000 jobs. But the good news, Mr. Speaker, it's not just creating jobs, it's helping people get by and make life more affordable.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Economic prosperity and environmental protection go hand in hand as we grow our economy.
My father had a long and distinguished career as a professional forester. He knew sustainable forests create economic prosperity and play a critical role in the most important issues of our time: climate change, innovation, economic opportunities for rural and Indigenous communities. Will the Parliamentary Secretary tell us how our government is investing in the forest industry to provide a sustainable environmental and economic future for all Canadians?
It's a great question. Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
I'd like to thank the member for his great question and his hard work.
That's right.
I recognize as well as professional foresters were the early environmentalists, and that's why our government is supporting a competitive and sustainable forest sector. We're investing nearly $23 million to help FB Innovations, Canada's premier forest sector research institute, to diversify markets and reduce emissions. While our government is growing the forest economy and protecting the environment, conservatives in Ontario are making reckless cuts to emergency forest firefighting and tree planting programs. Mr. Speaker, these cuts will hurt people, hurt jobs, and take us backwards in the fight against climate change. We will continue to invest in this very important sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, every year, 40 troops are trained at the RCMP school, and only one of them is taught exclusively in French. Yes, that's just 1 out of 40. But now it's going to be 0. 0, because the RCMP is setting up a pilot project on bilingual training that will put an end to French-only training. Now, this decision clearly goes against both the spirit and the letter of the Official Languages Act. The Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Official Languages need to review this decision immediately. What are they waiting for? The Honourable Minister for Official Languages. We have no lessons to take from the Conservatives when it comes to protecting linguistic rights. As we've seen recently with what happened in Ontario, that's very clear. What we need to understand is that as a government, we want to strengthen the Official Languages Act because we want to ensure that Francophones all across the country, and Francophiles as well, have access to job opportunities all throughout our system. So that's why I am working closely with my colleague, the Minister for Public Safety, to ensure that linguistic rights in this country and the rights of Francophones are protected. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the Phoenix fiasco has been dragging on for 3 years now, and the Government of Canada still can't pay its own employees properly. And 80,000 new cases are being added to the backlog every month. That's 80,000 families dealing with terrible stress. This government caused the crisis, so I expect this government to resolve it. Will the government commit to, first of all, compensating the victims of Phoenix, and secondly, fixing the problem? Not in 10 years, but before the elections. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, we are determined to solve this problem, which we inherited from the Harper Conservatives. The employees who were laid off, the money that they cut, that was all part of the legacy. We have been dealing with the backlog, and we are working on building a new generation system that will pay our public servants as they need to be paid. The Honourable Member for Montigny. Since January 1st, foreign internet giants have been paying sales tax in Quebec, just like everyone else. But not only have these companies bent to the will of Quebec, the system is actually bringing in twice as much revenue as predicted, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, Ottawa is still finding ways to exempt Netflix and co. at the expense of our culture. Now that we know that big internet companies are ready to pay taxes, why is the government insisting on giving them a free pass? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government stands with our artists and creators, and we are clearly showing that. This all comes down to the same question. We expect the same response.
Investments of $3.2 billion in the cultural sector, including the CBC, the Canada Council for the Arts, Telefilm, and the NFB. Because of previous Conservative governments' inaction, our laws on culture predate the Internet, which is why we are...
The Honourable Member for Pontigny. Well, another file they haven't dealt with properly. Last week, a train carrying hazardous material derailed in my riding near the town of Assomption. Fortunately, there were no victims and there were no leaks. But On February 6th in Manitoba, nearly 1 million liters of crude oil were spilled in an accident. On February 4th in BC, 3 men died in a derailment. There have been at least 8 major incidents since November, costing 6 people their lives. When will the government hold a public inquiry into the flaws of our rail transport safety system?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has made it clear to everyone in this House that rail safety is his #1 priority, and that's why he has taken actions to invest in the sector, to advance regulations, and to ensure that we're continuing to improve that safety. And on behalf of everyone in this House, we know that our hearts go out to the family members that were affected by these horrible incidences, and we are taking action to make sure that no family has to suffer in that kind of incident ever again.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, we've heard a lot in this House about SNC Lavalin, but Saskatchewan people are concerned about another multinational construction company accused of corruption. Vinci Construction took $2 billion to build a bypass around Regina that was supposed to cost only $400 million. Will the government investigate to ensure that the federal funds invested in this boondoggle were not misused?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, I want to thank my colleague for bringing this matter to the attention of the House and look forward to working with him to look into this matter. But in the meantime, I would point out that this government has made an historic amount of investment in the province of Saskatchewan that will see close to $1 billion flow into that province, including new transit buses in Regina, as well as investments in the Highway 16 interchange project. With the leadership of the Minister of Public Safety and all of our support for the prairies, we will continue to invest in Saskatchewan for the good people of that province and look forward to working with my colleague. Thank you.
Very nice.
And that ends question period for today. Yep, got it. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, Bracket 8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 4 petitions.
Introduction of Government House Bills. Statements by Ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Présentation.
Presenting reports from committees.
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
I have the honour to present in both official languages the 16th report of the Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities, entitled 2018-2019 Annual Report on the Administration of the Centennial Flame Research Award Act.
Very good. Dépôt de